What's up, y'all? It's Will here at Schedule Fly, and this is a episode with Scott Maitland, proprietor of Top of the Hill Restaurant and Brewery in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. If you've been listening to the podcast or followed any of our media over the years, you've heard from Scott before. He's been in the book. He's been on the podcast multiple times, and he has got a big day ahead. Of course, today is Monday, April 4th, and the Tar Heels are in the national championship game for men's college basketball tonight. And he's got Top of the Hill Restaurant and Brewery, sort of as he says, it's the front porch to Chapel Hill. It's on the main corner of town. It's on the third floor. It's where you'll see when people celebrate there, as you would have seen Saturday night. You see people sitting out or standing on a porch, a couple floors up. Hundreds of people out there looking out over the crowd. That's Top of the Hill. They've been doing it for 26 years. This will be their fifth or sixth championship game. And anyway, it was just interesting talking to Scott about like managing the process. Like how many people do they have in there? How do they decide who gets to come in? And the difference that technology has made for making that process so much easier for him and his team. But, just the staffing, all the things that come along with that. I was really curious about that. And of course they had to do it Saturday night. Saturday night's a little bit different than Monday night. Of course, tonight's the national championship, and then, what'll happen tomorrow if they win. And so it was just an interesting, quick conversation. Scott's always kind enough to come on. He's come on every time I've ever asked, and he's just such a great guy. I consider him a friend, but enjoy this episode. And I guess whether you're rooting for North Carolina or for Kansas, hopefully it'll be a good game tonight. And big deal for Scott and the folks at Top of the Hill, and we appreciate him doing this. So y'all stay tuned. More of these coming soon. All right, take care. Well, Scott, I won't keep you long, but I guess just do this. We'll kick it off here. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Scott Maitland. I'm proprietor of Top of the Hill Restaurant and Brewery in Chapel Hill.
So, Scott, thanks for doing this today. I'm sure you've got a very busy day. So the UNC Chapel Hill Tar Heels won their Final Four game against Duke a couple nights ago. They're playing for the national championship game for college basketball tonight, and you have an iconic restaurant right in the middle of town, Top of the Hill Restaurant and Brewery. You've been doing it for, what's it been, about 25 years now?
22 years, yeah. Crazy, huh? Oh, yeah, no, hold on. 26 years, I mean.
26, yeah. God, that's nuts. Okay, well, so if I asked you at the beginning of the year, if I told you, yeah, your football team's going to be like, kind of average, but your basketball team's going to be in the national championship, would you have thought I was insane?
Well, I don't know if insane, but I just don't think that's going to happen, right? I mean, we definitely, unfortunately, the football team didn't perform. We were so close, but we didn't. But yeah, no, this has been such a surprise. The idea of Carolina being in the national championship on basketball, that's the crazy part, right? Like that's the part that is just insanity. Yeah, really is.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, a couple months ago, like, I listened to sports talk radio and people were like, yeah, they're probably not going to make the tournament this year.
Not, yeah, even, I don't know. I mean, we count up the weeks, but yeah, I think 6 weeks ago, I mean, I think there is a fair argument to be made that if we didn't beat Duke in Cameron on Coach K's last home game, that we may not have been invited to the tournament. I mean, it was that close. And that's why that's surprising, because not many people thought we had a chance. Not to make myself sound like some kind of talking head or whatever, but I am on record, even given an interview, that I felt like we had a good chance to win it at Duke. And it's been great because this season I've had a chance to actually go to most of the games, and my kids are old enough that we could do it. So it's been a real family affair. And we could just see the team coming together in a way that, that's one of the challenges, and one of the reasons why Carolina was so far on the outs is they changed how they do the rankings for this power thing in the top 68 teams or whatever. And so, ACC didn't do good in the beginning of the year, and then there was no way for the ACC to gain ground because we were all predetermined to be not that good. And so I think that the results show the ACC definitely got better because we had 3 out of the final 8 teams. So, it's just one of these things that sometimes, what you measure and how you measure doesn't necessarily reflect reality, which I think that in the restaurant business, we all get a taste of that sometimes.
Well, so talk about, that's why I want to talk to you today about the restaurant business in a college town when your team is doing well like this. I mean, you all had I would imagine, a huge night Saturday night. Now you got to prepare for another big night tonight. What comes with that? Like, what are the things that?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I think one of the things that not to sound like Debbie Downer or whatever, but I've given a lot of interviews over the past week. Everyone thinks that, oh man, you're gonna just kill it on Saturday, and as we all of us restaurateurs know, Saturdays are our biggest days anyways. And so the problem with especially Final Four, we're not getting any table turns. So you got people coming in, and there's such demand and such a logistical thing to get people seated so they can watch the game that you just kill the entire dinner seating. And so to be fair, we ended up doing a little bit more than we expected. But the idea that we're doing any more than what we normally do is simply silly. And in fact, it actually costs us a little bit of money on that day. Now, the flip side is that yesterday was huge, right? Because people are still in town. And so, so my whole point to everybody, it's not like, hey, that's the day and we're all running to the bank. It's more about reinforcing the branding in a slow, steady win, because not only do the days surrounding, like we learned the hard way in 2005, after making it through our national championship in 2005, on Tuesday, we were like, okay, we're just going to staff lightly because it's over and everyone's exhausted. And my chef to this day, he's been in the business now 40 years. He's like, that was absolutely the worst day of my life in the restaurant business because so many people are in town and so many people want to come up. So it is definitely a win. And then obviously everything can't be boiled down to an economic transaction. And branding for Chapel Hill is so wrapped up in this identity that this is all such a win and such a fun time. But it doesn't necessarily present itself in the way that people think, which is just, hey, we're, Saturday night's over and we're walking to the bank. And the other thing is that it is a logistical challenge, and it's a challenge. You're balancing. We've got staff who all go to school here, and of course they want to watch the games, and there are some real things. And then you've got people who will get very angry that we're unable to, meet their needs in terms of seats and all that kind of stuff. And I keep feeling like I'm a Debbie Downer because it's so much fun and so great. But the reality is we got 10,000, 15,000 people that want 300 seats. We're going to disappoint people. And as we all know, in the restaurant business, people are not shy about letting their disappointment be known anymore, and so you got people flaming us for what? We don't have enough room? What? You know what I mean? And so we try to be very, very open and transparent about how we give tickets out and give everyone a chance. But I've had to have discussions with irate customers about how online shopping carts work, and that the transaction is not done until you actually make the transaction. You didn't do it fast enough. Somebody else bought it before you did, and I'm sorry you didn't get the seat. You know what I mean? So I only bring this up because I know the audience that we've got, which is we're all restaurant professionals, and so I think people can relate to this. Sometimes, people from the outside just think it's all so easy, and everyone shows up, and it's like, man, this is a bear, all these people, and trying to keep that customer service up, because the downside is that the reality is you got all these people, and there's just as much opportunity for people to say, oh, this place sucked, when in fact we're really killing it, right? So we really have to think about that and make sure that we're on point with customer relations and all of that, which we spend a lot of time in.
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked you that question. That brings up so many things that I just would not have intuitively thought of. One that makes a lot of sense is the table turns. So, I guess you have people that are just coming and getting a table and they're there all evening.
So the only way that we can handle this, and so it's been interesting to me to see how technology has changed how we did this. But going back to the day, like 98 and all that stuff, what we would do is we would have again, trying to keep this open to everybody, and myself and Guy Murphy being dedicated to the idea that it shouldn't just be insiders to get tickets. Like we have this thing that's part of our culture at Top of the Hill, that we are the front porch of Chapel Hill. And consequently, the front porch just can't be a bunch of Scott and Guy's friends coming in. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's an important piece of branding too. It's like, you got to get new people and new blood the opportunity to make these lifetime memories. So, as each year goes by, there's a tension. We got people saying, like, I was there in 05 and 09 and 17, and, I deserve a seat. It's like, well, okay. Or maybe you should give somebody else a chance to make up, but we used to camp out. Like, we used to say, okay, we're going to release seats, at noon the day before, because, and I feel like Top of the Hill is who pioneered this. I, as a law student, remember showing up at BW3s on Franklin Street, which no longer exists, or hasn't existed in 20 years, but showing up at 7 a.m. on St. Patrick's Day so I could see a Sweet 16 game for Carolina that played at 10:20 p.m. And we sat there from 7 a.m. to 10:20 p.m. I mean, there's only so much stuff you can eat and drink, right? And I realized that we needed to have a better way to make sure that we could actually translate all this demand into something, instead of people just parking all day long. And so what we decided is we come up with a ticket system. And if you were here for the game, you get a ticket, and then we clear everybody out. And the people that were here for the game would seat and all that kind of stuff. And so the town used to get on us, because it got to the point where people would camp out for 2 or 3 days ahead of time. Right. And so with COVID, though, and all of that stuff, we changed it. So now we do an online reservation thing. And one of the things we do too, we talk about selling tickets. We don't sell tickets. And in fact, I'm probably stupid not to do that, if you're just looking at it as an economic transaction. But we just don't feel like we should be charging people. And instead, what we do, though, is we make them do a $40, and I think actually for this game, it's $50. But, they pay us $50 to get a seat, but they get a $50 food and beverage credit when they arrive, right? It's just sort of like more of a minimum than anything else. Otherwise, we would have people not show up. And so people reserve the seats. We run all day long like normal. But then, a couple of hours before the game, we clear everybody out. And then we set it all up for viewing, and then we let people in. And so with respect to Final Four, we had a huge lunch that day. And then we got everybody out, and we redid the seats. We got everyone out of the dining room, redid the seats, and then people came in and were started to sit at 5:30 to watch both games, because people want to watch both. For the championship game, it's a little bit of a bigger deal, and we even have sold seats at the bar and all that. So we're going to have lunch today until 3, close down, reset up, and then at 6 o'clock, let everybody in. Well, the darn game doesn't start until 10 or 9:20, right? So, that's kind of just gives you an idea of what has to happen. But otherwise, if you don't do that, we have all kinds of issues with people being upset that they didn't have a seat, people not wanting to leave, and you get in altercations and all that kind of stuff. So I know I'm rambling on, but it's complicated. But the good thing is that we've got it to the point where we don't have problems with customers. And I feel like we tried to optimize the monetization of demand in a way that's fair to everybody, and then also allows us to, make some money. And I will say this, that obviously tonight is the night that we make way more money than we normally would, because, Mondays suck normally, right?
So, okay. When can people start buying tickets? Like for tonight, when did you
we did it at noon yesterday. And for the Final Four, we did it on noon on, I think, a Thursday.
But this is an online transaction, so it's like buying concert tickets or something. Like you.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so they sold out within a minute, right? And I will tell you that this process. I mean, I will say this: the technology's made it so much less stressful. Because before, people were camping out. It's like, okay, great. Well, the town would get on us, like somehow we were responsible for that. People need to use the restroom. People need to have. I mean, like we'd have to have staff monitoring the line, because people would accuse people of cutting, and Now it's just like, okay, great, everybody's got a shot, get on there, and it's very democratic, little d democratic, and it's great because before the line or the ticket sales were dominated by students who could afford to camp out. Now it's a great mix. We got students and we got townies and we got all kinds of stuff because everybody gets a shot.
And
I'd love to know, like, if anyone's got any better ideas and better way how to do it, man, I'd love to know. Yeah. I mean, on one way, and people say this all the time, that we should just flat out accept payment, like auction these things off. And by the way, for the Duke game especially, people were talking about a secondary market, and we clamped down on that. We're like, hey, if we wanted to sell these spots for $250, we would have done it ourselves. And we made it that the initial purchase buyer had to be there, or we wouldn't honor the actual ticket.
Well, that was my next question. How do you? So what do? They show up with a
photo ID of the name and of the person that actually bought it.
Okay, right. Got it.
Yeah,
got it.
I mean, right. And so what's really wild, right, is like people on a surface level, it's like, hey, this is great, everyone's showing up. But when you really dig in on it, holy bajoli, it's a lot of specifics and things, and then changing over technology has made it easier in a lot of ways. But again, this idea of clamping down on the secondary market, brought up some details that we needed to work. So what we did was we communicated with everybody and said, hey, we're not going to honor your ticket unless the actual purchaser of the table, because that's the way we do it. We do it in tables, like tables of 4 and 2. Unless the actual purchaser there is there. The other thing is, and to be fair, and I hope that Hubert Davis doesn't make too much fun of me for this, but to be honest, in 8 weeks ago, it didn't look like we were going to the Final Four, and so we actually booked a huge party for 20, or not, but a big party for 25 last night or Saturday night, excuse me. And of course, everything changed, and we called them up and we're like, hey, do you still want to come? And they're like, hell yeah, we want to come. So we honored them, and we didn't make them do the $40 minimum and go through all of that stuff. Because again, you gotta honor the commitments you already made. And normally we would not schedule parties for Final Four. All right. But again, we, like everybody else, I thought we were going to beat Duke, but Final Four, we're playing with house money here, So
yeah, you really are. So big night tonight, and then tomorrow is going to be most likely a big day, especially if y'all win. But either way,
especially if we win. And normally since COVID, we've been closed on Tuesdays, but we're opening up for lunch tomorrow just because we know there's so much business in town. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if you saw the pictures of, and so then and again, this is great, but there's also a lot of security issues and stuff. And I mean, like, the crowd was so well behaved on Saturday. It was the largest party I've ever seen. And it was also seeming to me in many ways the very best behaved. We had almost zero issues with customer interaction and problems and vandalism and all that kind of stuff. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's true for the town too. So that was great, because in years past, sometimes things would get out of hand and maybe there'd be some vandalism and all that. So knock on wood, we haven't had those issues so far.
How many people can you get in Top of the Hill at one time?
The official capacity is 452. And I'm not sure, sometimes the lawyer in me wants to challenge these things, but our fire department has decided, well, it's 452, but you got to have that allocated evenly around this whole area. You know what I mean? Like they keep putting layers of it. So we have learned both from the feedback from the fire department, but also making sure there's room for people to get up and buy things. I mean, like it's somewhat that you don't necessarily want to run at that full capacity because it gets so crowded that you can't facilitate sales because people are so jammed in. So typically, when you figure we got 50 or 60 people for staff, we like to run it around 300 or 325 people. And basically probably, 60 or so under the theoretical absolute max. But that keeps the fire department happier. And it also, again, I think facilitates more business.
Gotcha. Okay. So when if y'all win tonight, you won't have you know how to manage the number of people really well. You're not going to have people just flooding through the door.
Oh, no. And it's really wild too. That's a whole phenomenon. because again, we're on the third floor above where this huge street party takes place. And so it's really fascinating to watch. Games over, we win. Typically about half to 2/3 of the crowd run out to get out on Franklin Street. And then the other third run out to the rail to look out on Franklin Street. Now I'm an old guy now. I am definitely, put me on the rail. I'm just going to watch it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, but I'm estimating that crowd was, 60,000 people.
It was huge. I didn't see some footage.
So they all run out, and then what we do is we, control them coming back in. And, and again, this all sounds in some ways very, like, oh, we're so in control, but we just realized for the customer experience too, that, having these waves of people run out and then a wave of people running back in is bad. And we've learned this the hard way. We've learned this from actually, like, we, like any other organization should, we have, we get together and we talk about best practices and things we would change and all that stuff. So a lot of the reasons why we do the things that we do is because we learned it the hard way at some big event in the past. Yeah. And we have these, this is the interesting thing, right? Not just national championships. I mean, this will be the fifth time we played in a national championship since we've had Top of the Hill Open. Maybe the sixth. I have to go back and do the math. But, we also have Duke games and all this other kind of stuff too. So we are pretty familiar. I mean, basically on average, at least once a year, we have a big street thing like this. So we have some experience with this.
Awesome, man. Hey, I know you got a lot going on today, so I'm going to let you roll. I really appreciate this. And go Heels, man. Hope you guys
go Heels. I will want to say, at the risk of pissing people off or whatever, I love how the Coach K retirement party, and by the way, I'm a West Pointer. I've got some affinity with him and all that, but I love the way the Coach K retirement year has turned into the Roy Williams National Championship, UNC versus Kansas.
It is pretty funny, man. It's pretty wild. I mean, I have to say, this is like, you couldn't have written this.
No one would believe it, right? This is definitely the truth is stranger than fiction. So.
No, and I tip my hat to your team, and your coach Hubert Davis, because I mean, you guys got your butts kicked by Duke at UNC a few weeks ago, and I remember there was a guy, Sports Talk Radio, one of these guys. It's amazing sometimes that they can just say whatever and they get paid.
Never held accountable.
All these guys were saying like, oh, there's a 99% chance that Duke's gonna, win that game at Cameron. Like everybody's like, there's just no way. And but hey, it was a great game the other night. Kansas is tough, should be a good game tonight, but good luck, man. And thanks for doing this on such a busy day. I appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me. And I will say that I think that winning the national championship is important for the rest of the world to remember this team forever. But in terms of Carolina, this team has a spot on the Mount Rushmore of Carolina teams for doing what they did. So hopefully they go in there and win in the national championship. But regardless, these guys will never be forgotten.
Love it, man. Love it. Appreciate it, Scott.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Go Heels.
Go Heels. Later.